Do not skip this story. Watch the video until the end. The last revelation rethreads every scene you think you understand. What waits in the final minute is the reason the cut was opened in the first place.
Chapter 1. The Carve.
They told us the old shop room was condemned after a student lost fingers to the cold saw. That was the official story. The room smelled like machine oil and damp rags, and if you pressed your ear to the concrete, you could hear the bloodless, metallic hum rising up from the pipes, the sound of something waiting to be switched on. I didn't go there until after the assembly, after the screams.
The masked figure came out of the wings of the auditorium like a backstage rumor made meat. A welders, visor catching the stage lights.
He, or it, had a blade that glinted the color of old pennies. He moved the way you move when you know the hallways better than anyone else. And by the time the rest of us stopped assuming this was some sick senior prank, my friend Kayla had bled out on the wood where the band had been tuning. I was the one who found the flyer tucked into a library book, a photocopy warped from too many runs, the text crooked, ink smudged to gray. It read, in jittery caps, "Cut time, mend mistakes." Under that, a diagram of the cold saw, teeth annotated like stars. Someone had penciled in the word kerf. I had to look it up. The kerf is the part you lose, the sliver of wood or bone or air that turns to dust when the blade passes through. It is the price you pay for making two pieces where there was one. I kept the flyer. I kept Kayla's last voicemail too, the one where she joked about the retro pep rally theme, about borrowing her mom's vintage jacket for the show. Her voice was so alive that it made the air around me thicken. At night, I replayed it with headphones, as though the force of wanting could push sound back into a throat. The night I first used the saw, the school had already decided to pretend. They made counseling an optional break in the library, introduced a stricter hall pass policy, installed a camera above the auditorium doors that blinked like a tired eye. But the saw didn't care about their fixes or my grief. It cared about the alignment of a mark scratched into its metal base, a triangle that fit with another triangle I found etched under the workbench, invisible unless the light hit just right. I turned the clutch.
The motor inhaled.
The blade shuddered without spinning. The air rigidified, like gelatin setting. Then the room shivered, not cold but thinner. There was a cut in the air in front of me, an unline you noticed by the way the world didn't agree at the edges. I reached out and my finger vanished past the knuckle, tingled, and pulled back with a hair's breadth of frost on the tip. Cut time, mend mistakes. That's what the flyer promised, and promises are a kind of blade.
I steppet trug. Chapter 2. The First Return.
The hallway smelled like last week, citrus cleaner layered over gym socks, the wet penny scent of the radiator bleed. The posters on the wall still pleaded for votes for homecoming court, a QR code peeling. Tuesday, not Friday.
3 days before the assembly.
I had gone back. Or the school had. The distinction felt petty in the face of miracles. I knew how people talk about these things.
Don't change too much. Don't bump into yourself. Don't touch fate.
The problem is, fate doesn't wear a name tag. It looks like a million daily choices stacked like cards until a tower happens, and the wind is the only honest thing in the room. I found Kayla near the vending machines, arguing with a sensor that kept eating her dollar.
Shelauket vensche SAVME. Pure ab early.
Is it about the calc quiz?
You look like you SAV a ghost.
I need you to skip the assembly on Friday, I said. I hated myself for how crazy it sounded, hated how her face closed like a fist at the word need. I'm in the opener, she said gently. It's for the fundraiser.
Jure freaking ML out.
There's going to be a guy, a mask, a blade. I had to force the rest out.
I'm not letting you die.
She set her soda down without drinking. She touched my sleeve. Is this about that weird flyer?
The shop room?
You told me they padlocked it after that accident. I didn't know it would happen like this, how the moment you try to alter a stitch, the seam pulls in another place. I convinced her to skip.
I walked her home.
I stayed the night on her floor like when we were kids. I woke to the blue hum of her fish tank and the sensation that time was a wet rope slipping through my hands, taut and heavy and alive. On Friday, the assembly happened without her. It didn't matter. The mask didn't come to the stage. It came to the parking lot.
The visor mirrored sky.
The blade did what blades do when they are hungry and believed in. He went through 3 kids before anyone realized the fire alarm had been pulled to herd them out into open air. Kayla didn't die that day. 2 others did, and one of them was the boy who used to trade apples with me at lunch. I stood between the cars, trying to breathe past the taste of gasoline and iron, when a shadow fell across my shoes. The silhouette on the asphalt was not a mask but a blade, a perfect absence, the shape of the saw's curve, hovering at my toes as if it were choosing.
I kult für the quasi marking me.
If I hadn't interfered, it would have been the stage. I had moved the cut. That meant I could move it again. That meant the cost had begun and could not be unbegun. Back in the shop room, the flyer lay on the bench where I'd left it, except it was not the same copy. Someone had written in a different hand, "If you save one, the time owes one." The letters were thin and deliberate, each stroke carved hard enough to indent paper. Underneath, in pencil so faint it almost wasn't there, "Don't let the mask learn your pattern." I didn't go home that night. I walked the halls until the custodian drifted past like a moon and didn't see me. Every door hummed when my hand neared the knob, as if the whole school were a machine I just didn't understand. The shop room saw vibrated like a living throat. I set the triangles and reached again through the unline, knowing what it meant to owe. Chapter 3. The Year That Wouldn't Die. The floor tile changed color under my feet as if someone had swapped the school's nervous system overnight. There were payphones on the wall. The lockers were dented in a different language of fists. The pet posters were hand-painted and the ink smelled like plastic cups and hope. I was in the same school, but not. A calendar in the vice principal's office proclaimed 1998 in blocky numbers. It would have been beautiful if I hadn't been wearing someone else's years like a dress with a bad hem.
I kept my head down. I found the auditorium.
The curtain was a deep red that our current budget could never afford. Teens splayed across the seats like vines. A girl with a bowl cut drew cartoons in the margins of a program. A boy with a chain on his wallet hummed along to a song I knew only from my mom's old CDs. The mask was there too. Not the same mask. There are 100 ways to hide a face. This one was a face shield with a cracked edge, like it had known fire. The blade looked newer. The person inside moved like a rehearsal they had done 1,000 times and never told anyone about. I should have turned and run back to the saw and the unline and the unworld that began 3 feet from the bench. Instead, I did the stupidest thing. I tried to talk to a teacher. She was 20 years younger and wore her hair long, the color of used gold. She would be the woman who, in my time, swept hallways with her spare attention and coffee breath, who always had tissues and a knack for hearing the truth under whatever we said. Here, she vibrated with a cautious joy. "You're lost," she said, not unkindly. "I need to tell you that the stage is unsafe today," I said. "Something is going to happen."
My voice broke open like a year of bass.
She looked at me for a long moment that felt like it should change my life. "Everything is unsafe today," she said. "That's what it means to be awake." But she moved. She told someone to pull the plug on the fog machine, to check the ropes.
Check langst into the wings and I SAW the mask stiffen, as if my gase kult nudge a feet.
I never saw the first 1998 victim. I heard him. That sound, the wet onset, the chest full of air yanked hard and nothing following, is the sort of sound that makes your body remember being animal. The aisle became a throat-swallowing teenager's. I tore my way to the stage stairs and felt something brush my calf with a kiss that was not a kiss. I glanced down and watched a line appear on my jeans, as if a very thin, very committed marker had drawn a rule from ankle to knee. Backstage, the mask was closer than it should have been. Up close it looked like my reflection on a spoon, bent and wrong. "You don't belong here," the voice inside said, and the words moved across time like a hand under a bedsheet. I ran. The teacher grabbed my wrist, and we both moved as the rigging came down in a scream. When it hit the floor where we'd been standing, dust leaped like a creature, and my vision went white around the edges. I didn't make it to the saw room. I made it to the bathroom, where I locked a stall and pressed my ear to the partition and listened to girls complain about their mothers and a backbeat from someone's too loud Discman and my own breath cutting itself into smaller and smaller pieces. In my pocket, a new scrap of paper, same flyer, same diagram. New handwriting, slanted and impatient. If you cut back far enough, you will find the first slice. Under that, a note like a whisper cut into wood. He is learning your smell. Chapter 4. The Mask That Learned. I didn't know it then, but I had been tracked. Not by cameras, not by the kind of logic that makes timetables and bus schedules, but by something primal. Every time I used the saw, I left a draft. The unline opened a little easier. The blade hummed a little higher, eager as a dog when it recognizes the block where it's allowed to run. In my time, the mask stopped showing up where crowds could gather witness. He threaded himself through the quiet places, the nurse's office, the supply closet, the little slice of green behind the auto shop where kids pressed each other like coins. The security guard quit. The principal learned to speak softly about lockdowns because loudness fed the fear and the fear fed the blade. We were learning a grammar of surviving that felt like loving something meaner than you are. I realized what the notes meant when I walked past the trophy case and saw myself in the glass. Not Mimi, not the girl who had started the week with clean nails and a toothbrush schedule. My reflection was late and off by half a second, like the worst lip sync you've ever seen. A thin seam zipped down my forearm where the jeans had been marked earlier, a pale line that hadn't been there that morning. The kerf. A piece of me had been taken, and in its place, time had left a scar like a receipt. That night, I went back to 1998 determined to find the start. It wasn't a night at all, but a winter afternoon with that blue light that makes everyone into a story you'll tell wrong later. The shop teacher in this year had a missing fingertip and a tidy way of moving that suggested other parts of his life were not tidy at all. The saw looked newer and hungrier and was marked with only one triangle. The other hadn't been carved yet.
Do you ever get humps?
I asked him, like it was a practical question. He regarded me with suspicion reserved for kids who can smell your secrets. It hums when you feed it wrong, he said.
What's wrong?
I asked. The mask appeared in the door glass behind him, a reflection like a lie lying to itself. The teacher didn't see. I did the stupidest thing again, which was to reach behind me and tug the feather chain on the light. The room dimmed, and there in the dim, I saw the kerf in the air, the very first one. A hairline split so fine it looked like a crack in a contact lens.
A miracle and avant.
He pivoted, blade lifting.
The mask knee ml now.
And it had learned something else. The saw was not the only way through. Anywhere the air was thin and sharpened by repetition. Hallways walked to death, lockers slammed on the hour, a curtain pulled nightly, the kerf could be coaxed with a touch. I could see them now, hanging like cobwebs no one knew they were walking through. The world was full of doors we'd already opened without noticing.
I could my hand pushing the tiacha out of the way. Blood hit the kerf like rain hissing on a grill.
The split widened. The mask moved, not to kill him, not to kill me, but to shepherd. To move us. To trim the excess. I understood the job of the blade, and it made me sick with its logic. Time has edges that must be maintained, and I had made ragged what should be clean. The mask was the janitor of reality. Or so it believed about itself. Stop, I said, to time, to the mask, to the part of me that wanted to be forgiven. Take me instead. The corridor flickered. Somewhere in 2024, a fire alarm bleated. Somewhere in 1998, a bell rang the same note but wrong. The mask hesitated, like I had pulled a wire in its head. You already belong to me, it said in a voice that sounded like mine after crying. Then it did the unthinkable. It lifted the visor for a heartbeat. The face underneath was not a face you'd recognize in a yearbook. It was a paler version of my own skin, pulled taut with a grief I had not yet earned. A white line under the left eye in the exact place where I'd walked through that first kerf and come away with frost. The mask was a me that had been cut too many times, the receipts folded back into a person. Saved and saved again until the equations had nothing left but zeros and holes. Time had taken my kerfs and made them limbs. Chapter 5. The Price of Mending. You think you're ready to choose until the choice arrives wearing your face. I went home. By which I mean I went to the room where my bed existed in both years, a shape that would be mine for a while longer. I looked at my hands. There were new lines on the knuckles, hairline differences you could only see if you squinted and wanted. I played Kayla's voicemail again and counted breaths between syllables like an astronomer counting the time between pulses from a star that has already died but refuses to accept it. The notes changed without my touching them.
On the flyer, new words pressed trug like bruises. You can't UNCOT.
You can only give a clean edge. It wasn't asking me to stop. It was asking me to be tidy. The next day, I did something like praying. I took my dad's camping knife and nicked the pad of my thumb, small enough to sting, big enough to matter. I pressed the cut to the cold sore's base and let it drink.
Take me, Isa it again.
Then I set the triangles to a third configuration, one I hadn't tried yet, one that made the blade stutter like a skip track. I went further. This time it was the same hallways with their same acoustics, but emptier. Dust had had time to make its own plans. The posters were different, voted most spirited in a year I did not know. The shop room had a new lock with old scratches around the keyhole where someone had picked and won.
And in the corner, under a tap, so meeting briest.
It wasn't a person. It was a shape in the air, like a jellyfish had decided to live here, delicate and lethal. The curve had swollen without a frame. A free cut. I understood at once what it meant. Someone had tried to use the machine without the triangles, without the patience, and the seam had widened and failed. The whole place had been a hinge ever since. "Hello," said a voice from beneath the tarp. It was my teacher's voice, older than 1998, younger than 2024. "I wondered when you'd notice me." She crawled out like a moth from a lampshade. Her hand had a missing scar that shouldn't have been missing. Her face bore a cut that should have been mine. "I made the first bad cut," she said matter-of-factly, "in an empty summer. I thought I could slice off a mistake and leave it in yesterday. The saw took more than I was giving. How do I close it?" I asked. She looked over my shoulder, towards the free cut, and smiled in the way of people who have already had to accept the obvious. "You don't close it," she said. "You finish it. There's a difference. If I gave the curve what it wanted, if I gave it the rest of me, it would stop taking slivers. It would stop making more of me that didn't belong. The mask would have nothing to shepherd. Time would accept a clean edge. But you won't be you," she said softly.
ULL be the line between two walls.
And lines don't give speeches.
They don't eat breakfast.
They don't hold hands at graduation. I thought of Kayla and her fluorescent nail polish. I thought of the parking lot boy and his lunch apples. I thought of the way the mask had said you already belong to me, the tenderness of someone who means to hurt you for your own good. I thought of the word curve, how we lose a little to make a thing fit. When the mask came, because it always came, I was ready. "You want to tidy," I said.
This is tidy. I walked backward into the freakhood.
It was cold like the plastic in a hospital mask, like your own breath coming back to you with consequences. I held my arms out and the edges met me, like a bird closing its wings. "Wait," said the mask in my voice, the version of me that had done this too many times and ended up with nothing but blade. "It's not mercy. It's math." But the way it reached for me made me believe it remembered ice cream and a laugh that made soda hurt your nose. "It's both," I said. "Keep them safe." And then I closed the cut by becoming it, by letting the saw have me in one motion so clean there would be no more receipts.
Chapter 6, The Clean Edge.
You expect death to be dark. It isn't, not here. It's clarity. You are a line, and lines don't blur. They define. You do not breathe, but you feel the breath of hallways as seasons pass through them. You do not remember, not the way people do, but you know which door will open before a hand reaches for the knob. You are the seam that once was wrong and is now correct. From my edge, I saw the school live an extra winter without a body on the stage. I saw Kayla grow wary and then brave and then older, small scars inside her that she only touched when she was alone. I saw the boy with the apples walk on a different sidewalk and meet a different set of eyes and fall in love with a life that did not include a parking lot soaked in sirens. I saw the teacher keep the saw under a tarp and later, much later, take a job at a different school, and I hummed to myself when she entered rooms that used to hum for her. The mask came, of course, hands lifted like a supplicant. It stood in the dust and watched my edge shimmer in sunlight that knifed under the door. You took my work, it said, but not unkindly.
The visor coughed me like water catches light.
It did not raise its blade. It stood a while, then sat, then leaned. You can sleep near a line. It won't bend to meet you, but it will keep your back from the rest of the world. Sometimes in the wide night of the building, I hear the saw vibrate, not from electricity but memory.
Machines remember. Te hold fingerprints deeper than the oils of skin.
On those nights, I think of speaking. I am not allowed, but allowances are made for those who finish their tasks neatly. I can vibrate against speakers, make shapes in feedback, print small bruised notes on the back of photocopies. That is why you found the flyer. That is why you are listening. That is why your phone, here at the end, is buzzing for no reason, and the light under your door has narrowed to a slice so thin you can barely see it. I am using what's left of me to ask just one thing. If you ever find yourself in a room that hums the way a mouth hums when it wants to sing, if you ever feel the air go rigid in front of you like a sheet of glass, if you ever see a line that isn't a line but a loss, the curve, do not feed it your fear. It will burp and ask for more. Do not feed it your anger. It will learn your pattern. If you must feed it anything at all, give it a clean edge. Give it one choice that leaves no receipts. I can hold here as long as the triangles stay aligned.
I can hold and hold and hold.
But the world is nothing if not restless. Someone will tilt the triangle a little, someone will be curious the way I was, the way you are. Then there will be a new cut, a new me, a new mask or none at all. So listen closely. You can pass this story on and call it a warning, a ghost, a theme for a pep rally that never happened. Or you can call it what it is, a thin place where you can hear the shape of your own choices. Do not skip to the end and think you've outwitted it. The end is where the blade is happiest, and it is patient. It will wait for you to close your eyes and press play again. It will wait for you to think you are safe because you have named the thing that hunts you. Names are not locks. Locks are not doors. Doors are jokes the air tells itself. If I could hold your wrist like my teacher held mine, if I could turn your face toward the freer kinder hallways, I would. Instead, I can only hum. Cut time, mend mistakes. The price is always the same, and no one deserves it, and still it is paid. If you've listened this far, if your room is a little colder now, if the line of light under your door has widened by a hair, it's because I am still here, and I am tired, and I am asking for understanding more than forgiveness. And if you feel something brush your ankle as you stand, do not look down. It is only the clean edge asking to be believed. If this tale cut into you, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications so you don't miss the next story, give the video a like, leave a comment with your favorite moment, and share it with someone who thinks time can't bleed.